Sat Shri Akal, I'm Atar.
Hi, I'm Manish.
And welcome to our podcast, Two Best Friends, where two best friends, meaning us, talk about everything and anything that relates to us being millennial, migrant, brown, women, others, career-driven women. And we talk about just essentially everything. And today's topic is quite interesting and very, I think close to everybody's homes, because it is about like making home with your partner and how to choose a partner.
Yes, and it's about shadi and
Shadi.
about how we choose a partner, like Atar said. And I think something which is quite relatable to, being South Asian.
Yeah.
And if Seema Auntie rings a bell, it's about
We're talking about Seema.
arranged marriages. And what does it look like now, but also in the past?
Who has been your Seema auntie? Who has been our Seema auntie in our lives?
Yeah.
Or who were the Seema aunties in the back in the days?
What does it look like? And because it is quite different to maybe a lot of other cultures in the world. And I
Yeah.
think it's good to just acknowledge that and think about, do we think it works or it doesn't work?
Before we start, we have to get into our silver lining, but I'll start first. So, Manisha, how much I love true crime shows.
Oh yeah.
So I have gotten back into it. I have been watching all the documentaries, and recently I've come across a podcast, a Desi crime podcast. It is so amazing. These two hosts, Aishwarya and I think Aryan is his name. They are amazing storytellers, telling about all the true crimes happening in South Asia. So I've been completely hooked, and I've been really enjoying it.
Oh my God.
My
That's
obsession
like-
has picked up.
It's like I'm like, oh, what's gonna come through? But yes, yeah, I can't relate to it, but I'm yay for you.
Don't diagnose me, but I am just
No.
enjoying it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's amazing to find things that you can enjoy,
Yeah.
and I'm glad that you're finding that. Not watching any shows at the moment, interestingly. I don't know why I'm just off TV at the moment. I did watch this really cute old movie of Richard Gere and like Jennifer Lopez, which is like, it's called Shall We Dance?
Okay.
And that's my silver lining, I've got to say, if I have to think about it. Out of everything, like I really enjoyed was the fact that it was about a man in his 40s and had a very perfect-ish life. Had his partner, really good relationship with her, was a lawyer, financially okay, everything. And then he's kind of come into his 40s and he's like, that kind of what do I, where's
What's
my
the meaning
happiness?
of life?
Or just happiness, or where am I? Like I'm happy,
Yeah.
but what more? Anyways, then he found this dance space, right? And not someone who had anything to do with dance, and he goes in, right? Where he finds a community and he goes and starts dancing. His motivation in the beginning looked like it's all about the girl who's doing it, but eventually he's like, no, it's not about the woman or the younger girl, or that's not the point, because a lot of time that is what it looks like in men or women in our 40s. When you're in a relationship, you can digress into other relations or whatever, but here it's like he realizes, because she says, if it's about me, don't bother. If it's about dance, sure. And he kind of questions himself, and then he's like, no, I'm actually enjoying the dance. And he actually goes all in. And it was so good. And he brings his wife in the end. It was that whole, like, yes, it is so important for in a relationship to grow individually.
Yeah.
Right? Something me and Ashwin also spoke about before that movie, actually, about how important it is to give space to each other in relationship. And I personally am very proud that me and Ashwin both have that in us, and we do. I think that's one of the amazing things about a relationship. But it was so good to see that, because a lot of people think space is equal to not being interested in the relationship and or digressing into another, like, you're attracted to other people. Actually, it's not. I feel like we need to celebrate the fact that I'm an individual and I want to grow and do things. And absolutely, I love you as a partner, but doesn't mean I have to be stuck to you.
Absolutely.
And I think that is what was my silver lining, that thing that came out of it also, but about my relationship, maybe with Ashwin, and saying, okay, good, we're doing good here.
Nice. That's such a smooth way into getting into our topic and segment. of
Yeah.
about arranged marriages and marriages in general, but mainly arranged marriages. So, do we want to talk about like how, like from generation before us, how our
Yes.
parents met and what was their way of meeting?
Our relationship with arranged marriage in that space.
Yeah.
It's hard
Yeah, go
because
for it.
interestingly, both my parents did not meet in an
Mm.
arranged marriage setup, but they were trying to escape that setup,
Hmm.
right? So my dad actually, I only found out much later in my life, he actually was married before he met my mother.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and it was an arranged marriage.
Okay, I didn't
And
know that. Yeah.
and yeah, that relationship didn't go well.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I'm not going to go further into it. It's a bit dark, but it didn't go well. But and then he, didn't go ahead. My mother, when she met my father, they were in their late 30s, right?
Mm.
But they were actively looking for her arranged marriage, and she was very clear that I don't want to, she's a Malayali, and she was very clear about I don't want a man with paunch, and she had very typical, like if you hear her saying the story,
Prem uncle did not have any of very handsome
and he
man.
randomly he met her through an ad on the newspaper.
Old days,
Which
the
said
website.
woman in her late 30s looking for a partner, principal, something. But and they met, and that's how it happened, right?
Yeah.
But and maybe it said religion no bar, I'm assuming, because they were from two different religions.
Yeah.
But I think they were at that point that his family had given up, but her family was desperate.
Yeah.
And that's how they met, right?
Mm.
But they are the only marriage that's beyond arranged marriage in my growing that I can think of, right? Everyone, all my uncles, all my aunties have been in very typical arranged marriages, and most of my cousins are as well. So cousins were my age.
Yeah.
So it is a very known thing. Like I've been part of those.
From both sides? From
Both
your dad's
sides.
side and mom's side?
I can only count maybe 3 or 4 people who are not arranged marriages in my family.
Yeah, when you say 3 and 4, it is less number because you have many cousins. Both sides actually have a lot of siblings.
A lot of people. So out of that, 3 or 4, and the rest are it. And also the next generation, for that matter. So generation after me is the same. So it is something that's very normal and natural. So that's my story with it. Personally, growing up, it never was something was on my radar. Like for myself, it was kind of obvious. I was like, nah. Like I didn't even think that I was going to have that as an option. My parents, I'm like, this is not going to happen, bro. No one thought that, also because my parents were very different in there. They came together in that setup. So, but it's funny because all my other cousins did have that expectation, right?
Of arranged
You
marriage.
cannot be married out of the religion, and both sides have a specific religion, right? You can't get married out of the religion. You can't marry out of caste. All of that. So it's very interesting how I did not have that expectations on me, but it was very acceptable that everyone else did.
That also comes down to the parents. If parents made that choice, obviously they're not expecting anything different.
But anyways, that was my experience of it.
My parents absolutely arranged, their marriage was arranged by my grandparents. My mum's side granddad, he saw my dad come from not so well-off family. In fact, my dad had 10 siblings, 9 at that time, 9 siblings, my dada, dadi, all living in one bedroom house. So it was quite compromised for my mum, where she was coming from such a big household, where I know my mum still says like, oh, we used to use like oil in our days. We used to use soap to shower, which was a big thing back in the days. So my mum came from a quite good, well-off family, but she was married and not so well-off because my nanaji saw that my dad was very much stronger in his faith and was a hard-working man. So that was the basis of it. That was the value that aligned with my nanaji.
Well, in the olden days, it was not so much about the person getting married, right?
Parents, they used to see the values and how their values are going to shape up the life of their daughter and their grandchildren and son. So my grandparents decided that they should get married, and they got married. Both my families are quite religious. So everything goes through a religious leader, a spiritual guruji, and they get to decide. They are the person who will match make and approve or not approve. So that was approved by them that, these two families will have a good match and they should get married. Everything happened within few days, and my parents were married. And then many years later, I was the result of it. And then I didn't think I had any other choice. I thought everybody gets married, it gets chosen, the groom gets chosen, who was chosen for me, and that was it. It was just nothing. I didn't expect that I will have my choice in it. Everything was pre-decided, and it was so normal in a household that I was okay with it. That was my normal. So I had my arranged marriage where I was told that I'm getting married a day before I was getting married. I didn't know who I was getting married to until I got to the temple. So that's a kind of arranged marriage.
Yeah, and that's pretty shocking, right? If you think about it in this, it is quite shocking, though.
It is very
that's
shocking.
like what, like you know, if you think we're in this world where we, you know, it's a partner, it's a life partner that we are finding, and that is though a lot of times. If I talk about the olden times, where see arranged marriages, one of the reasons it is had is to keep people in the same religion, same culture, same caste. That it's about control at some point. Also, it's some people say, and I've heard that saying, oh well, they understand, so you're not going to have so many issues, right? They understand where you come from. Which I understand, but there's a flip side to which, so in the past, you know, it worked. Everyone remained in their own kind of spaces. I guess the flip side to it is now, you know, what does it look like at the moment? I'm gonna have a sip of water.
You okay? You're not dying? I'm worried for you. You're just like choking your own cough.
Fine. I'm very emotional about arranged marriages altogether. That's why. But you know, I do think it's about control. What are your thoughts? Do you think it's about control?
Yeah, it is, but I think things have changed to the point that if the arranged marriages still happen, then it is not put upon the groom and bride, the potential groom and bride. It is given the choice. Consent is there. You go on, like people now know that they have these values, and then they go on dates, align those values, and if they don't align, then they have the choice of saying no. If I have a choice now, like I'm not married anymore, if I want to get married, arranged marriage is definitely the way to go about it. And as you said, like, I don't see this as a control, but it is a lot easier when you come from the same background. And now backgrounds also mean the same values. So your values are a lot similar, then it's easier to live your life. You don't have to explain every step of the way.
I know what you're saying, and I know there's more autonomy than what it was, but it is, and I maybe, you know, but I do think that whole, like what you're saying, just because you share the same religion, caste, or background, or whatever, does that mean you're going to share the same values?
No, absolutely not.
And that's the thing. Like it's also with values. It's about prioritizing which value is more important, right?
100%.
You may have certain things you may share, but that's the assumption you make, right? Because the other part of it is that, you know, in the past, it was a very normal question. At least I have grown up with.
Oh my God, yes. And there was a certain judgment attached to it. There was that sense that if it is a love marriage, the chance of survival is a lot lower.
Absolutely. And that is changing.
Yes, 100%. I feel like love marriages have a lot less survival rate now.
Maybe. I don't know. Relationships in itself, the survival modes are quite less.
Yes, because people are choosing their own space, their own independence. The value of marriage has lost its value.
It is, and but the other thing is also, it's a change of the shift about being a woman and a man, right?
Yeah.
I feel like when in the traditional setup, when you did an arranged marriage, it was very clear, or you could kind of say, okay, these are our peripheries. Whereas now, generally, there is that peripheries are changing, and if you don't change with that, then the woman or the man at some point will like, no, I don't want to be in this kind of a relationship.
Yeah, but I do want to question that, are they actually changing, or are we seeing the world from our perspective? Because I see that as changing, but then we come across few instances or few people's examples or stories that, or even advertisement online. Because nowadays the way the arranged marriages happens, or even the agencies that they advertise is, and they ask for the criteria that we thought we've moved on from, like गोरी लड़की चाहिए, काम करे,
but not
independent, not married before, no issue. You know what? I didn't know what issues meant.
What is issues?
Yeah, No issues.
Or like kids. Oh my God.
So
what is the double meaning?
one issue, she has two issues.
Are we going to be an issue? Oh my God.
So the other thing that I've seen is that it also specifies if the mother has expired or not, father has expired or not, and
Really?
yeah, like the jhanjat of sas and sassur. Yeah.
I mean, I know. And also, yeah. And there is all this, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of like trying to put people on a
No, so that's what I think, that world is changing, but I don't really think in the core of it, it's changing. Like people around me, what I see around myself, I definitely see the big shift. From up until me, and I think millennial, so you would
Yes.
assume that 21st century, quite modern. I was still subjected to what my parents were subjected to. But I saw the change where there was a love marriage in my family, such a beautiful, successful love marriage.
Yeah.
Their marriage is, I feel like I admire my nephew and his wife's marriage. And then now there's also a choice of like who you want to choose. If you like, it would be ideal if it is within the religion, for the fact that it is easier to communicate what you know and what you've lived with. But yeah, that is welcomed. You can go on dates even if it is. So within what I've seen, it's changing, it's growing. My
It
friends,
is
it's changing
changing.
and growing.
I agree. It's changing and growing. There is more. Would you like to go and meet this person? Do all this thing, you know, rather than you have to agree
Yes,
to my
or
thought.
even
Or
having choice that do you want to get married or
Yeah.
not.
I don't know if that's a choice.
I've seen that change happen. Rather than getting married and not be happy in it, and having children, and then going through the divorce and the whole complications, that emotions that come with it, the choice is definitely there. If you don't want to get married, that's completely up to you.
I don't know. I have not. I think I have only. That could be if you've already been married in the past or have had something. I don't know someone who hasn't gone through that. If that's really a choice in the Indian, like I haven't seen anyone where they're like, yeah, if you don't want to get married, don't do it. Like I think it's very much like the 30 comes and then the pressure starts.
Tick.
It is,
tick,
and it's not
tick.
just the family; it's the society. It's also within yourself,
But
right?
is it Indian though, or we live in Australia, Melbourne specifically, where it is multicultural. We are exposed to a lot of cultures. We both have friends that come from different cultures: Greek, Italian, Macedonian, everyone, right? Is it just India that has that sort of pressure, or is it Australian and other cultures as well?
Oh, well, every culture has a pressure, but
Yeah.
the difference is, and that's why the reason we are talking about this is because I had some, like one of our family members came over, he's younger, and he was, you know, he's in his late mid 20s, and he was talking about his friends, right? Between mid 20s to 30s who are getting married, and some of them are arranged marriages, right? And arranged marriages because they like to saying to their parents, "Abdul." And it's because there is a pressure to have, you know, the relationship or have that commitment. And they're like, maybe this is a better way to do it than maybe the other part of it, which is situationships or other ships that we exist in
Because
right
we've
now.
moved on from the apps. The world has moved on from the apps, the Tinders and the Hinges and the Bumbles. So we are going the old fashioned way of meeting people in person.
It's kind of easier because it's accepted. Like, try telling a parent here, find me someone who's not from a
Why would we do that?
How am I going to find someone? Where am I going to find?
Yeah.
In India, I think it's an easier option. Not easier, but at least it's an option.
I think it's also better nowadays, especially with arranged marriages, that we do ask our parents or people that know best, they know us best, to find somebody for us, because we can be oblivious to our values and seeing what's out there. It's easier to ask someone to find them, because then they're more pragmatic and less emotions, and then the options are there, the hard work is less.
Maybe it is. I agree, it is. But I just, and this is not my experience, but I've seen this. I'm part of this online Facebook group called Brown Women something. And there, I cannot tell you the amount of time, and this is Australia, England, UK, US, whatever, where women say, my parents have disowned me because I have married someone out of my culture. It's either even now. So where there is that pressure where they've married a Gora, right? or married a non-Indian or non-South Asian person, and that in itself has broken families down because the expectancy is that you have to be within,
Yeah.
right? There is that other world that exists where it's very clear that no, you can't. Right? I have heard where it's very clear, like in certain spaces that I've hung out with, or like where it's like, yeah, you can marry anyone but not this religion. And again, I feel like it's a lot of control there because parents are scared, or even within yourselves, the biases and stuff like that. There are a lot of factors to it, and the thing is, we can't. The problem with South Asia or India, for that matter, is you can't put it in pockets because so many different experiences of it. Age is the other thing, right?
Yes.
It's a very controlled environment. Color is the other thing. Where I know friends who've married, the woman is older and the man is younger. She was not the typical, and the parents had big issues in that space, even though it was much later in his years. He'd experienced the world, he knew what he wanted, and he wanted this partner. It was a big issue. I feel like with love marriages, it's almost like it's okay if it's within the range of what we have said. When it's not, parents do, there is that sense of, no, let's do it, let's find someone who's. So there are a lot of factors that it's still a problem in our society, that yes, we are more open, but are we really? Because we also want to control that.
I think vision has broadened, but where the funnel is smaller, it is still very small.
It is, and
I think we can reflect upon ourselves. I can reflect upon myself, my thoughts, my values. I think I am not that open. I'm still very conservative in that way. I still have certain ways of how I view things, and that just doesn't change.
And I think that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's that it's we are also born out of our own parents and society's assumptions and biases or conditionings, and it's about looking at that for yourself.
It's even the fear of not doing what we've learned and has worked, not doing that and then failing or having a lot worse happen. That also, like always, is clouding upon us. So we just want to keep going with the familiar setting.
Absolutely. But also sometimes not accepting the unfamiliar setting of people who have done that. It's okay to do that. Now, I want to come back. Have you ever had a rishta come to you?
No.
No?
Have I got rishta come to me?
Saying, okay, Atar, there is rishta for you. Or auntie saying there is a rishta for you, or something like that. Like,
oh my God. Do you know this thing of the rishta come? It just, I don't know why, it shoots my anxiety so bad.
Really?
So bad.
Well, I've not had the experience because I just never got the experience of it, which I'm very sad about. I feel like now, because too early in life, got married, and then at that time I think no one expected any rishta.
No.
From my end, and now I'm like, I have two issues. But I do remember auntie advices growing up, which was very much related to getting married.
It was also, wasn't it? Because I got married before you did, and I had that silent pressure of having issue. Did you experience that? That you have to have children now?
After getting married?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We'll talk about it in the next topic.
Yes.
We have issues before them.
Even this about the whole having children.
I think that's absolutely, because I have very strong feelings about children. Should you not?
Maybe next episode we'll talk about that. But I do remember growing up and saying, "Beta, weight kam kar lo, nahi to tumse shadi kaun karega," right? And I'm like, whatever, like as if I'm waiting for taking my tray to someone and doing it.
Lucky no one suggested Fair and Lovely for you because you were gory as it is.
I do remember, because I have cousins who are from the south, right?
Yeah.
I do remember being compared, and I personally did not like it, where they were compared to my complexion.
Yeah.
And even like girls that my male cousins were looking for, and the comparison was, it needs to be as fair as me. And I'm like, what? But there is all of that. Like I do, and that's the arranged marriage, like hearing these things, but no, she has to be fair enough.
Criteria.
Just so you know, right? Like, but anyway, so there are all these things. But coming back to it, so any last thoughts before we finish?
Whatever you do, arranged marriage, love marriage, just make sure you're happy and 100% sure of this. You have a choice of saying no. You have a choice of not getting married. You have a choice of doing other things that you love. Marriage is not the only thing in your life. Look at me being the Seema auntie.
Also, yeah, I think like it's good to have a partner, right? And I think it's the lookout of partner and commitment that makes people get married.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that in it's okay. Like, I was someone who did kind of say, no marriage, what nonsense. This is whereas now, and I still do, but at some point I'm like, well, it's the commitment that matters in the end. And that's an Australian thing, because in Australia, actually that's how it works. You could be a de facto or a married person. The legal things are pretty similar.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the change is there. But absolutely, it's about relationship and celebrating. Like, we've had, because also the other part of Indian marriages is that they have a lot of fun. The weddings part of it, right? So we just want
Like,
people to
I did
get
that.
married.
Manisha asked me, like, when Ashwin proposed to her, or the talks of the marriage started, she was like, "Shadi karni." I was like, "Of course karni hai. We
She just wanted the wedding.
I just wanted to have, like, I wanted to see the wedding.
Yeah.
But on that note, like, I know someone said to me a few years ago, they were like, "Oh, you know what? Partnership, like a companionship, can be part-time as well," and that's what they would view as like the ideal companionship. And I was like, no, that's such a bizarre thought. I was like, no, that's not, there's no such thing as that. Now, if you ask me, part-time companionship is not that bad.
That is another topic that we can get to, actually. I think that's a very cool, interesting topic. And we'll get to that. But for today, let's just talk about arranged marriage or love marriage. What did you have? And what are your thoughts if you've had one?
And if you had love marriage, how did you meet your partner? Because I'm very interested to know, did you meet them in school, college, Facebook, Tinder, Bumble, through a friend? Seema auntie bumped them into them on a street.
Yeah,
something. Maybe you were having like a solo coffee and they came and joined and they were like, love it. But anyway,
that's our
let us know.
Vision of our next.
No.
All right, thank you everyone. Lovely talking to you today, and see you next week.
Bye.